Welcome to Larking Gowen Insights, accountancy and business advice for all. A series that gives you bite-sized tips and guidance on tax, funding, legislation, reforms and much more. With case studies, business advisory and sector specials and even interviews, our team of experts are committed to helping you navigate the world of accounting and finance with a variety of presenters from across our specialisms. So, let's get on with today's show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our podcast. My name is George Crowe and I'm joined today by Abi Davis, and we will be talking about NHS pensions and specifically the remedial pension savings statements. So Abi, what topics will we be covering today?
So today we want to look at who it is that will receive a remedial pension savings statement, when they should expect to receive the statement, why they would receive one, what this pension shows and what it means, how to interpret it, and what actions you need to take, and also how to use the cost claim back scheme for any services that you require.
So section one, first part that we're going to cover off there, as Abi said, is who should be receiving a remedial pension savings statement. Basically, not all members of the NHS pension scheme will receive a statement. That is dependent on when you actually joined the NHS pension scheme. So the reason that people will receive a remedial pension savings statement is because of a thing called the McCloud remedy. You may be wondering what the McCloud remedy is. You've probably heard us bang on about it at various different points throughout the past probably 5 years now. So the McCloud remedy is a judgment which has been passed to remedy age discrimination within the NHS pension scheme. Members of the NHS pension scheme were moved over to the reformed 2015 scheme with effect from either the 1st of April 2015 or at some point up to the 1st of April 2022, depending on what their date of birth was, what their age was. Judge McCloud brought a ruling which basically said that's discriminatory based on age, and that was deemed to be true. So they went through a case and it was found that actually that was age discriminatory. So the McCloud remedy is to remedy that age discrimination. What that means is for those members of the NHS pension scheme where their membership had moved from the 1995 or 2008 sections of the NHS pension scheme into the 2015 scheme at a point between 1st of April 2015 and 31st of March 2022, they are affected by the McCloud remedy, or may be affected by the McCloud remedy. The McCloud remedy will move the membership for that period in between those 7 years, 1st of April 2015 and 31st of March 2022, back into those legacy schemes. It's not applicable to everyone that has a legacy scheme, because if you joined the NHS pension scheme before 1st of April 2012, then you are affected. If you joined after the 1st of April 2012, you aren't affected. So you could still have membership within the 2008 section and the 2015 scheme and not be affected. But broadly speaking, if you have membership in the 1995 scheme or the 2008 scheme, then the likelihood is that you will be affected by the McCloud remedy and you should receive a remedial pension savings statement. So, when should you receive a remedial pension savings statement? This is it's a very good question. It's one that we've been asked by clients for many years now. Originally, NHS Pension said we'll get those all out to our clients or our affected members by 1st of October 2023. That got bumped back a year, 1st of October 2024. We're still waiting for several statements to come through. So a lot of our clients and a lot of members still haven't received their remedial pension savings statement. It depends on what their member class is. So NHS Pensions have now issued a timetable, and that timetable sets out exactly when members can expect to receive a statement depending on what their member class is. So if you retired by the 1st of October 2023, you were a previously unprotected member, and unprotected means you didn't have any protection of when you moved over to the 2015 scheme, i.e. you moved over when it was introduced first of all, from 1st of April 2015. And because you've retired, you are only drawing your legacy scheme benefits. Legacy scheme is 1995 or 2008 scheme. Then you should receive your remedial pension savings statement by the 1st of July 2025. If you retired from the 1st of October or before the 1st of October 2023, you had taper protection. So you didn't move over to the 2015 scheme from the 1st of April 2015, but at some point between the 1st of April 2015 and 31st of March 2022, you did move over. And again, only those legacy benefits are in payment, 1995 or 2008 section, and date applies 1st of July 2025. If you retired by the 1st of October 2023, unprotected, but you have both 1995, 2008 and 2015 scheme benefits in payment, then the date that you should receive your statement by is the 1st of October 2025. If you'd retired by the 1st of October 2023, taper protected, legacy and reform benefits in payment, again, same date applies, 1st of October 2025. If you retired after the 1st of October 2023, but before the 1st of July 2025, then the date is the 1st of December 2026 that you should receive a statement by. If you're an active member, so you haven't drawn your benefits at all, and you're still contributing to the NHS pension scheme, then 1st of September 2025. And if you're a deferred member, so you were an active member, but you've come out of the pension scheme, not to draw your benefits, just to opt out, then again, it's the same date, the 1st of September 2025.
So why would you receive a remedial pension savings statement? So there's a couple of reasons why a member might receive a remedial pension savings statement. One, you would receive one if your pension benefits have been rolled back into the legacy scheme. Two, if there have been changes to your pension input amounts as a result of McCloud. And three, if it's deemed possible that there could be changes to a member's tax liability as a result of McCloud. This could be either an increase or a decrease in tax liabilities, depending on the changes to your pension position and whether previous declarations of annual allowance tax charges have been made. So when you receive your statement, what can you expect it to show? What's it going to look like? So it's a 6-page document which will include details of your pension input amounts for your updated values, your old pension input amounts, details of any tax charges which you've previously reported to HMRC, which were paid by the pension scheme on your behalf, the opening and closing capital values for any annual allowance purposes in each year for each part of the pension scheme, and your combined pension input amounts.
Yeah, so just to touch on a couple of points in there, Abby. Obviously, those members that are going to receive their remedial pension savings statements, the reason that they will get them is purely because of this age discrimination, purely because their benefits have now been rolled back into their legacy schemes rather than them having that 2015 scheme taking effect from whenever they would have joined between 1st of April 2015 and 31st of March 2022. It's all been effectively unwound. It's as though that change never happened, and their benefits will have changed. The 2015 scheme has a different accrual rate. It grows at a different rate to what the 1995 and the 2008 sections grow at. So undoubtedly, if you've got a remedial pension savings statement, the likelihood is that your pension input amounts will have changed. The frustration with the statements that we've sort of had is it doesn't show all tax charges. So it can say it'll show the tax charges that the NHS pension scheme have paid, but it won't actually show any that you've paid personally. So it can be a bit confusing to try and unravel in terms of what do I need to do, what are my next steps, and how do I take this forward. So leading nicely into how do you actually interpret the statement. So the thing to look at is the pension input amounts. You've got a page of that statement which shows what the combined pension input amounts is across both the pre-McCloud remedy, the old benefits, and the post-McCloud remedy, the revised benefits. So the thing to look at there is what has happened to the pension input amounts. Have the pension input amounts gone up? If they've gone up, then it signifies that there could be additional annual allowance charges. If they've gone down and you've paid annual allowance tax charges in the past, it could result in repayments. As I said, it's only part of the puzzle because it doesn't show all of the information that you need. It doesn't show you whether you have reported a tax charge to HMRC and paid that tax charge personally. It doesn't show what your taxable income is to be able to assess whether there is tapering of the annual allowance, and whether that £40,000 or tapered annual allowance is actually in place. The tapering thresholds during those periods, 2015 through to 2022, 2023, did actually change. So again, it's understanding what the situation is in each relevant year. So it doesn't show the amount of any annual allowance tax charges paid, which were previously reported to HMRC. It will only show the amounts of any scheme pays election, so any amounts that you've elected for the NHS pension scheme to pay. And I think the thing to really say is we've seen some statements which have been inaccurate. They just don't have the right information on. The calculations are wrong. There's changes which haven't been affected. The calculations which have been done in the background by NHS pensions have resulted in that pension value, or the pension values that are stated on that statement, being incorrect. So the statement that you receive is only going to be as accurate as the information that NHS pensions have, which is why one of the important things to do is to make sure that your NHS pension record is correct. And it's one thing that, as a specialist accountant, specialist medical accountants, we can do for you. We can liaise with NHS pensions, we can request that record for you, and really check to make sure that the data that they're basing their calculations off of are correct, and indeed make sure that their method of calculation is correct, because there are changes. Everyone's pension is individual, everyone's pension has their own oddities, so it's important to make sure that that information is accurate to prevent you from potentially overpaying tax or underpaying tax, which would then result in further annual allowance charges in the future. The other thing to mention as well is the pension savings statement that you receive will include details up to 2022-2023. For 2022-2023, there wasn't a requirement for members to report annual allowance tax charges on their self-assessment tax returns. So if you have an increase in your pension input amount in that year, which most people will because they wouldn't have reported any annual allowance tax charges in that year, then you do still need to report those to HMRC. And the other thing as well is if you have changes, then that needs to be reported. So what actions do you actually need to take, Abby?
So you will need to report any tax charges which have arisen as a result of the McCloud remedy to HMRC. HMRC have an online tool which should be used to make the declaration, which can be found on their website, and we can provide assistance with this. We would strongly recommend, as George has said, to check your pension records, check the service records that NHS pensions hold. Again, this is something that we can assist with. There is a 3-month deadline for reporting any allowance charges to HMRC, and so all declarations should be reported within this time frame. If there are additional charges to pay, then you do have the option to pay these personally or use the scheme pays election.
We've talked about those charges and the changes that will happen to their pension input amounts. What happens if there is an increase in a tax charge, say for one of those earlier years, 15, 16, for example, that's now nearly 10 years out of date? How will that be reported? What will they have to pay, if anything? And vice versa, what happens if that tax charge that they previously reported in that year has actually gone down?
If you have a change arising to your tax position in an earlier year, so that's 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, or 18, 19, then there are a couple of different things that can happen. So if you have a tax liability which arises in one of these years, then this charge will be written off by HMRC, so you won't need to worry about this charge. You won't need to pay it. If you have a tax refund due, so if you originally paid a charge personally, this will be due back to you, and this will come from NHS pensions as compensation for the overpaid tax. Alternatively, if the scheme paid, so if NHS pensions originally paid the tax charge, then they will be refunded, and that will be between NHS pensions and HMRC. So they will sort that between themselves. There is nothing further that you need to do about that. However, you do need to declare these to HMRC to make them aware of the position.
Abi mentioned there, seek professional advice. I would strongly recommend doing that. I think hopefully we've not scared you with the level of detail that we've gone into, but these forms, when you receive them, they're 6 pages long. There are a lot of numbers. If you don't understand them fully, then they can be quite overwhelming, and a professional will be able to help administer the changes, update your pension, update your HMRC position, and be able to deal with everything appropriately, take away that stress so that you haven't got to worry about it. But furthermore, you can actually claim some of that cost back. So because of this being something that was nothing to do with any member, it wasn't anyone's fault in terms of nobody chose to move across to the 2015 scheme. You effectively moved across because of your age. So it's not really fair that you have to pay to put this position right. So what they have done is they have implemented a cost claimback scheme. And that cost claimback scheme enables you to reclaim some of the costs for professional advice. So the costs of using us as an accountant, for example, or seeking the help of a financial advisor to ask some financial advice questions in relation to the McCloud remedy and the rollback can actually be claimed back. So there's certain criteria, and in order for you to apply for the cost claimback scheme and for the money to be reimbursed to you, then you have to obviously be affected by the remedy, and you would be able to claim the cost of assistance in completing the submissions to HMRC, as Abi's talked about, and or advice on the effect of the rollback on your tax position. If you need advice about the move to the 2015 scheme, which no longer applies because of the ruling, the McCloud ruling and the rollback remedy, again, you can apply for some cost claim back. Or alternatively, if you need advice about choice benefits after receiving your statement, again, that is within the remit of the cost claim back scheme. You can't, however, claim back costs for advice or services that could have otherwise been obtained from the NHS pension scheme without a charge. So that can be anything that they could provide you figure-wise. You can't claim for that to be reimbursed. If you're claiming or if you're asking for general advice about your pension and it isn't linked to the remedy, or alternatively, if you've actually already incurred a load of costs before this work was undertaken and before the remedy has taken effect, again, they unfortunately wouldn't qualify for the cost claimback scheme. There is a time limit as well, just to make sure that people are dealing with this in an appropriate time frame. Abi mentioned that if you've got an increase in tax liability, then you've got a 3-month deadline to make your submission to HMRC. The cost claimback scheme is open for 12 months after you receive your remedial pension savings statement. So if you receive it, make your submission in 6 months, but then fail to claim back the costs of that for another 6 months after that, then you're out of luck. Unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to then be able to claim those costs back from NHS pensions. So how much can you actually claim? It varies depending on what the services are. So if you are asking for services from an independent financial advisor, that is capped at £500. If you're asking for services from an accountancy firm, that is capped at £1,000. Those figures are both inclusive of VAT, so it's not £1,000 plus VAT, it's £1,000. The other thing as well to mention is you can actually make more than one claim. So I mentioned earlier about some of the statements that we've received being incorrect, not being accurate. If you make a submission through the HMRC tool and you use a professional advisor to be able to do that, they make the submission, they invoice you for that work, all done. No need to worry about anything further. You've made your cost claim back scheme, money's been paid back to you by NHS Pensions. Don't worry about it. Next month, a new statement comes through. NHS Pensions have received some updated information. They realise that they made a mistake on the statement, and all of a sudden you've got another statement to make a submission with. The figures have changed. You need more advice. Ask for more advice. You can claim back another £500 or £1,000 for that second piece of work, because it's a separate piece of work. It's not the same as the original statement. So if you receive multiple statements and you've made multiple submissions to HMRC, then again, they should all be covered for those costs that you're incurring. You do obviously have to pay the invoice, and then you submit the claim to NHS Pensions. There is a specific form that they ask you to complete, and they ask for evidence that you have paid that. So we will provide our clients with receipted invoices to say that we've received the money for the invoice, and the invoice will have the wording which is to do with the McCloud remedy. So it's obvious as to what the services are that you've been invoiced for, what the work is that we've done, and should therefore be covered under the cost claim back scheme. There are conditions. So we've gone through what work can be covered, but the two conditions that have to be met is that there has to have been a financial loss incurred, and it must be a direct result of the discrimination that took place or the remedy taken to put right that discrimination. And payments for professional services or advice, including but aren't limited to accountancy and IFA services, which does not include payments for information or services that can be obtained from NHS Pensions free of charge. So as I said, the work in terms of updating tax positions, they're all covered. That is covered under the cost claim back scheme. So our services would be covered under the cost claim back scheme, and you should therefore be able to make a claim and have your money reimbursed. They do also pay interest on that amount. So obviously you're paying for your services up front. You're then receiving a reimbursement at a later point. NHS Pensions do issue some interest on top of the amount that you've paid. So it's not that you are out of pocket for any lost interest that you may accrue in that period.
So to conclude, really, I think you can see the importance of seeking advice from a professional who really does understand the complexities of the NHS pension, because as you can see, it's not straightforward upon receiving these statements. So once you've looked out for your statement, once you've received your statement in the post, we would strongly advise letting a professional know, letting somebody see your statement to see what the next steps are for you, because it will vary from every member. And make sure that your submissions are completed on time. So that is the 3-month deadline if you've got increased pension charges, annual allowance tax charges. If you have enlisted the help of a professional, they will ensure that these are completed on time and assist you with the whole process. If you would like to enlist our help to assist you with your NHS pension and your remedial pension savings statement, then please do let us know, because we would love to be of assistance, and our contact details are in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us for Larking Gowen Insights, Accountancy and Business Advice for All. Don't forget, you can find more information about today's topic and more about how our team of experts can help you in your business by visiting our website larking-gowen.co.uk. Join us again next time for another fascinating insight into the world of accounting and finance.